Is there any link between discipline, priest, and order, I wonder? More so a subjugating holy power? There are links between how we've seen the holy light used, specifically by the Naru, and how we have seen the, well, domination, which is frankly just a rune carver's interpretation of straight order magic, in my opinion. You know, seen to dominate people and things, souls. I would also like to throw out there that domination, its power is the ability to disrupt a soul, which is interesting. It's almost like a soul is like I think of it like this: like a soul is like a yin and yang symbol. There's light and dark in the soul, and domination has this way of interrupting the connections of the soul. It interrupts the individual's mind, and it stops their basically their mind and soul from being able to fucking collaborate anymore. And it's basically just a disruptive force that allows you to basically subvert one's free will by basically severing their soul, or you know, kind of disrupting their soul from kind of the rest of their body. So when you think about that concept, I'm just reminded about how the Titan Pantheon sought to take Sargeras to the seat of the Pantheon, or sorry, Argus to the seat of the Pantheon, as Magni states, specifically because Sargeras has a connection to Argus, and we can sever that connection, but not in Antorus. It had to be done at the Titan's place of power, the seat of the Pantheon. And it would seem that potentially in them reaching out with this giant beam of what appears to maybe be order, I'm very cautious of their ability to interrupt Sargeras' soul in a very similar fashion. And so that is to say that, like, when I've shown you guys in this cutscene before, some of you have been here for it. When they put Sargeras on the seat, you can almost see like two entities sitting in the same seat. One of them is a big shadowy demon, and the other one is Sargeras in front of it. And you can kind of see the silhouette of the demon before even Sargeras like raises his head. That's how you can tell there's two things there. And I would think that they are disrupting his soul. What they're doing is they're disrupting the demon within. They're disrupting that connection for Sargeras, and I think that they're going to be able to control him with domination if they do that. Their magic and what they're attempting to do to him, I don't see it as very different, if different at all, from domination. Something that disrupts soul-bound connections, something that can sever the connection of two souls like Argus and Sargeras. It's pretty remarkable power. In what is it? The disruption is really, I think, it's just division. It's splitting, right? It's like what we saw Frostmourne do to Sylvanas. It takes one aspect of the soul and splits it from the other part of it, potentially. You know, I was talking about before, you know, the soul and the mind and all that, and yeah, I'm just like loosely paraphrasing. But if you could sever a soul like that, then I think that if you can do it to Sylvanas, you can do it to Sargeras, and you can most certainly do it to Azeroth. And I think that that's what Order has done throughout its time spent tyrannically in the cosmos, at least in more recent history, relatively. And that is that they've divided things. They've separated them out and tried to make everything separate from one another and appear as though it's all separate from one another, but it's not. And the further that we get into this game, the more that it's being illustrated to you guys, that, and to me, that everything is not separate. And this really leans heavily, especially into Eastern philosophy, that everything is not separate. Everything in the world and in the universe are not separate things. They're all an expression of the same thing. And it ties into dichotomies that are often seen as opposition to one another, when that's not necessarily the case. And this is what I'm saying when I talk about like life and death. We saw the tree come together with life and death, born in the realm of growth and spirit. And we saw how that allowed Azeroth. We saw how that balance allowed her to kind of break free a little bit. Talk. Extend her power. And I think that you're going to continue to see these themes of togetherness, of one can't be without the other. This is part of why I'm terrified about the light and void conflict, because you guys must understand that one cannot exist without the other. If we side with the light and push back the void, we are not learning anything. We have learned nothing. And if we side with the void and push back the light, we have learned nothing. But what are you supposed to do? Now that fate has seen to unfold in this manner, what are you supposed to do? The conflict is not going to be what people think it is. People imagine in their heads, I would think, a battle in Silvermoon or at the Sunwell where the forces of the void come through and there's an epic battle between the army of the light, and like what even do people think is gonna happen? I think that we're deceived, man. We're being deceived. There can't be a battle between light and void. It can't even happen. If light loses, it just turns into void. It's so stupid. They're already defeated. Zira tried to hide it from Turalyon the whole time. There is much Zira did not want you to know, like the fact that Naru turned into void entities after enough energy has been fucking sapped from them. Why is it they can't face their own reality? They can't accept it. They're blind. It's ironic that entities of the light are blind to the truth of their own fate, or they choose to be. While the void, as Zalatath says, they see us as horrors to be resisted, but we don't share this view. They're simply long-lost brethren who will return to their masters in time, along the true path. There's no winning. There's no winning. You can't fight the void directly. It's not how it works. We've known that for a long time. We've known that for a long time. If the light wins, it turns into void eventually too. Yup. Part of why it's called the eternal conflict. There cannot be a winner to the conflict. And by the way, keep in mind that in that comic with Anduin and Velen, Velen says to him, the light will triumph over the shadow this day. It's like life triumphing over death. Not a good thing. It's like order triumphing over chaos. Not a good thing. We need both. We need both. They have to stop denying the existence of one another. Because they're not antithetical to one another. They are reliant upon one another. In that life cannot exist without death. There's no cycle between the two without the very deeply intertwined relationship that exists between the forces. Yes, but the conflict, I think, should continue. It's necessary for the mechanisms of the universe in balance. Well, I think that the question of purpose is something that I have kind of been thinking about a little bit recently. And I think that it's easy to assume that a being that is supposedly the creator of everything, I just think that is it foolishness to assume that she has no purpose or that she seeks no end goal? I feel like maybe that's foolish. I would think, and this is just my own philosophy, but like, I think that this comes down to conflict is the balance. But I think some of the conflicts that we have found ourselves in have done us more harm than good. And I just think that... I just wonder, would Azeroth really want a cosmos that is divided and always fighting? Or is what we perceive to be this natural, chaotic dance not the way that it has to be? And I think that that's where I often find my mind going, is that, like, does it really have to be this way? What's the purpose of all the fighting? Like, what's the purpose of seeing how things do not... I mean, I think I can derive meaning from it, but this is one line of thinking. That, like, that through all of this, hopefully, she has sought to learn something. To look at all that she has wrought and either recognize the beauty in it and allow it to continue happening again in a new cycle, or to take that divine power which rules over everything and change her own design. I mean, I feel like Farim kind of got into this a little bit in terms of, like, any one of the cosmic forces applying relentless pressure can cause the system to fail. And Farim recognizes that if even the most imperceivable of cracks, the tiniest of fractures, was left by Zoval, that he fears that someone else could learn to do the same thing. And if Zoval as one individual could breach Zereth Mortis, activate all of the Zereths with the power of Azeroth herself, seeking to reshape reality based on what he views as the better way of doing it, it just makes me think that, like, that illustrates that, like, that is the, like, that's the power which Azeroth has. The creation and destruction of everything. Life, death, light, shadow, order, and chaos is all her realm. And I just think that the truth of all of that, where it all intersects, is a term we call balance. And I think that that's why Elune is such an important player. Why she's so powerful, why she's been kept a mystery. And I guess I just somewhere in me, I guess, if Azeroth has the faith in her champions, if she has faith in Anduin, if she has faith in Thrall, you know, why wouldn't I have faith in her?